PlayStation VR, Oculus VR, Mario Kart Arcade Grand Prix VR. VR is such a new and exciting concept that really started shining in the early 2010s, only it's been around much longer. Has it already been 25 years? Considered one of the most infamous and one of the most notorious game systems ever developed, the Virtual Boy was launched in North America on August 14th, 1995. It saw a release in Japan about a month before, and never saw a release in Europe, Australia, or really anywhere else besides North America and Japan. But the question is, how does it hold up today? Join me in this video to go over Nintendo's most notorious system, and see how it holds up in the year 2020. The Game Boy was the first portable console to become popular to the mainstream. Nintendo had stuff like the Game & Watch before it, and those sold very well too, but the Game Boy was the first portable console to use interchangeable cartridges, while the Game & Watch only had one game each. Needless to say, it was a massive success, but it wasn't successful enough to the point where it did need some sort of successor.
Oh, the Game Boy sold so well, it can't possibly get a successor. A successor would cannibalize the sales. Nah.
Joking aside, Nintendo started development of the Virtual Boy in the early 1990s, and Gunpei Yokoi was in charge of development. He's the mastermind behind the Game & Watch, Game Boy, and even the highly underrated Super Mario Land games. But problems arose when Nintendo's then president Hiroshi Yamauchi rushed development of the Virtual Boy in order to have it released before their next console, the Nintendo 64. And because of this, we got the Virtual Boy that we know and, love today. So let's take a look at the Virtual Boy and see what it's all about. This is the Virtual Boy right here, and you can clearly tell it's unlike any other console, with its signature red and black design and design that honestly looks more like a cousin of Rob the Robot than an actual console. It's truly unique from anything else. I don't have the original box, but what you get with the Virtual Boy is of course the Virtual Boy itself, the controller with a battery pack which I don't happen to own, and the pack-in game Mario's Tennis. Even though I don't have the battery pack, I have the AC adapter for it, which allows you to play without having to worry about the batteries draining, and even though it was marketed as a portable system, I don't think you're going to bring the Virtual Boy with you anywhere. The Nintendo Switch is barely portable unless you have a case and somewhere to put it, so imagine bringing this thing with you. Taking a look at the console itself, you have the headset itself, the stand, and a visor to block out light. Why there's no head strap is beyond me, but it's how Nintendo designed the console. You're supposed to sit down and look into the console, though my preferred way is playing it laying down. It's actually way more comfortable that way. The controller is actually quite underrated and pretty unique. It's extremely comfortable. It's a bit similar to a GameCube controller with its M shape, but you have two D-pads which are both used in a few games, and bumper buttons on the back, which are similar to L and R buttons on consoles today. Everything feels really nice about the controller, and I don't really have any complaints, but the game cartridges are unlike anything I've seen before. Usually game cartridges will have gold pins that connect to a console, but the Virtual Boy's cartridges have a connection very similar to that of a controller, which is very unusual. It doesn't make a difference, just worth bringing up. But a game console's main purpose isn't its design, it's the games. The Virtual Boy only lasted then less than a year, and only had 14 games released in North America. But I do have 42% of the library, so in total, 6 games. So let's take a look at some of the Virtual Boy's games, and see how they hold up. Here we have Mario Tennis, one of the- oh, I'm sorry, wrong game. Sorry, Waluigi. Here we have Mario's Tennis. This was a pack-in game for the Virtual Boy, and the best-selling game on the system. That says a lot right there. But how is the actual game? Mario sports games are usually known to take a sport and add a Mario twist to them. The Mario Sports series really became defined on the Nintendo 64, but even a game like Super Mario Kart wasn't just about racing. You had items you can use, which gave it a unique feeling. But here, it's just tennis. Nothing more, nothing less. Just an extremely basic game of tennis. You can play singles or doubles and even have a tournament mode, but oddly enough, there's no multiplayer. The Virtual Boy was planned to have a link cable, but it never released. So essentially, this game is Mario Tennis Ultra Smash before Mario Tennis Ultra Smash. Can't wait for the Scott the Woz video on it. Then we have Tellero Boxer, another launch title. This game is actually pretty cool. You use both D-pads to block punches and the back buttons to punch, and you're fighting robots in an attempt to become champion, similar to Punch-Out, but I gotta say, this is one of the few games on the system that kinda feels like virtual reality. Most games just take advantage of the 3D and leave it at that, but it's almost like VR here, as much as it could have been in a red and black system in 1995. Pretty fun game and one of the Virtual Boy's best. And for the final launch title which I happen to own, here's Red Alarm. It's similar to Star Fox, but everything's a wireframe. If you're watching this footage in 2D, you're probably thinking it's unplayable. But if you're playing it on the Virtual Boy, it's totally playable. But is it fun? It's alright. I'd rather be playing Star Fox to be completely honest with you, but the game's just alright. It's your typical rail space shooter game, and while it's fun, it's just pretty typical and not all that memorable. Now on to some games that released after the Virtual Boy launched. Here is Golf. Not Virtual Boy Golf, not even Mario's Golf, just literal golf. It's your typical golf game, but in 3D. I will say the 3D effects look pretty cool and the gameplay is solid, but in the end, it's just golf. There are better golf games out there, especially the Mario Golf games, but overall, it's just your standard game of golf, but in 3D and in red and black. So if you wanted to play golf in what looks like hell would probably look like, this is it. Now on to the more interesting stuff. Here we have Mario Clash. Most Nintendo consoles have had a mainline Mario game, but the Virtual Boy didn't. Instead what we got is a 3D reimagining of the original Mario Bros. Arcade. The idea of reimagining Mario Bros. Isn't bad. Donkey Kong 94 is a reimagining of the original Donkey Kong, and was phenomenal. But unlike Donkey Kong 94, which had so much love and care put into it, this just feels slapped together. You're going through 99 levels, hitting enemies with Koopa shells while going in between the foreground and the background, and there's really not much to it. One complaint I have about the game is that the controls are reversed from what you're used to. You press B to jump and A to throw shells, and you dash with the back button? I don't know why I couldn't just have the normal Mario control scheme, and it's enough to throw off any veteran of the Mario series. A lot of the times when I died, it was because of the controls. Mario Clash is fun but repetitive, and it doesn't have a way to save, so you're essentially playing an arcade game. It's not horrible, but not great. It was clearly made just to give the Virtual Boy a Mario game, and that's about it. So far, the games have just been okay. Nothing too special, with maybe the exception of Tellero Boxer. But could the Virtual Boy actually have at least one great game? Well, finally we saved the best for last, Virtual Boy Wario Land. If you know anything about me, I love the Wario Land series, and we really need a new one on the Switch. In my opinion, most of the Wario Land games are far more interesting and ambitious than any of the 2D Mario games, and Virtual Boy Wario Land is no exception. The game plays a lot more like the first one with its power-ups and straight to the point, get the key and get to the goal gameplay, but it's faster paced and the levels are a lot more open. There are a lot of paths you can take, and it truly feels like an adventure. You can jump in between the foreground and background as a neat little gimmick, but that also makes the levels even more immersive. It's a blast playing, and even though it's a bit short, it's one of my favorite Wario Land games, and I highly recommend playing it. I think it would have been awesome if this game got a remake on the Nintendo 3DS, but since the ship has kinda sailed for that system, any hopes we can have of that game are pretty much left in a re-release or remake on the Switch. Because a Virtual Boy lasted as long as it did, meaning it didn't really last at all, there were quite a few games that were planned for the system that ended up being cancelled. One of these games was Virtual Boy Mario Land, an actual mainline Mario game planned for the system. This is one of the few games we actually have footage of, and we can see that Wario was going to be the villain once again, and it took advantage of going in between backgrounds and had these Zelda-style dungeons. I would have loved to see this over Mario Clash because this actually looks like it could have been promising, and the Super Mario Land games have always been great, so seeing a fourth entry would be awesome. It's really a shame we didn't get it. There were also a few other games that were rumored to be in development, such as a Mario Kart game and a port of Donkey Kong Country 2, and while there's no footage of either of these, the leaks that are going on right now gives me a little bit of hope we might be seeing a prototype or something like that in the near future. If we do see some prototype footage of these cancelled Virtual Boy games, I'll definitely make a follow-up video, because I've been dying to see a lot more of Virtual Boy Mario Land for the longest. So overall, how does a Virtual Boy stand in the year 2020? Unlike someone like IGN, I'm not going to judge it as a system released in 2020, but overall, is it fun to play and worth having? I'm not going to beat around the bush here. There's a reason this thing flopped, and it's because it was too ahead of its time and didn't have a library of games that had mass appeal. It was also expensive at $180 in 1995, and was overall clunky and had a plethora of health warnings alongside it. But I'm not going to deny it's a pretty cool system to have, and I've had fun playing it, but it's really more of a novelty than anything else. With a system like the Super Nintendo, it's retro, but has a ton of games worth playing today, and I guarantee you can get hours of fun from it. But because a Virtual Boy has such a small library of games that are mostly mediocre, you're not going to have fun with it in the traditional way. You're going to have fun with it because it's different and unlike any other gaming system. If you're looking to get a Virtual Boy to play games, I don't recommend doing that. The only fantastic game is Wario Land, but the rest are passable. If you want to play Wario Land, I suggest emulating it. But if you want a truly unique gaming experience unlike any other, the Virtual Boy is a great system for that. Even though the Virtual Boy failed, it did have some good ideas. The controller was really nice. It's clear its design evolved into the GameCube controller, which is one of gaming's greatest controllers ever. And the idea of a portable system capable of gaming in 3D was cool. Although the timing back then was perhaps a bit too early, Nintendo was able to achieve their dreams of creating a handheld system capable of 3D with the Nintendo 3DS in 2011. It goes to show that if you wait long enough and have patience, you can accomplish your dreams. You can do anything. Only to completely ditch them a few years later by making the 2DS, then the new 2DS XL, and cutting 3D entirely from the last few 3DS games. So what do you guys think? Would you get a Virtual Boy? Let me know in the comments and keep calm and dada on.